think someone has to make the motion first.
Right.
I think someone has to make the motion first, and then you can discuss it and ask me questions.
And we're not quite there yet.
Well, can we ask questions first?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can do it right after I make the motion.
Right. And Ryan has the time to ask the question.
And this question is just for clarity's sake. And just thinking about what you're saying about the definition portion, and you're suggesting that through what seems to be a rather vaguely prescribed process, each individual library of several dozen across the state would create its own process whereby it could, based on this third part of the definition, determine that material or performance like serious literary, scientific, medical, artistic, or political value for minors.
Section 5 of Act 372 that creates that review process doesn't explicitly incorporate that definition of harmful to minors. It just says inappropriate. So that's where the vagueness comes in Section 5.
And individual libraries would need to select I don't even know what to call it, a tribunal of employees to come up with this definition across dozens of library systems.
I think the connection that you're describing is real in the sense that very frequently the reasons stated for thinking that a material should be removed from the general collection of the library or just removed from the library generally, as we've seen in different places around, have to do with the definition of obscenity, what's obscene or somehow sexually explicit and therefore not appropriate for minors. So there frequently is the kind of connection that you're talking about where somebody challenging a book might say, one of the reasons they might say, Cal needs to take this book out of the collection is that it meets that definition. It's part of what creates worry on the part of librarians that there's a process that's not well enough defined to give them reasons to know whether some prosecutor is going to find a book harmful to minors and therefore them committing a crime by having it on the shelf. I don't know if that helps. So there is a connection, but it's a little different than you were describing there.
Okay, that's a great book of poetry by Paul Laurence Dunbar, wherein in a singular part he describes the sexual assault of a lady, and you're saying to me that somebody in my father's home county of Craighead County could, an unelected person, mind you, could determine that because of this singular stanza over the course of hundreds of poems could make this book unacceptable to even be displayed within a library.
That's right.
Thank you.
And part of the issue with the statute is that if the library committee makes that decision, you can't go to the city board or court and ask for the book to be put back. Second, that book, it may involve tough content, but I think it has important artistic value, you might say. The statute doesn't give you the right to do that. It solely moves in the direction of removing materials and doesn't give you the opportunity to advocate for the book the way you
And also, I just want to be clear about that because it seems that the corollary here is that we are certainly an unelected, albeit a voluntary group of board members who are determining whether or not we should challenge this on some constitutional basis. But there will be several dozen unelected, as yet uncomposed groups of library employees who will determine one by one which book is appropriately placed on the shelf.
Yes.
Are there any other questions?
But if I understand the process, after that unelected group, you can appeal them to an elected group.
If the book was not removed, you can appeal.
So when you use the word removed or out of the collection,
Say,
relocated, correct?
Yes, relocated.
Because the law says relocated, it doesn't say out of the collection, it doesn't say removed. It doesn't ban anyone from reading it. If I, as the parent, want my child to still read that book, as a homeschool parent, I probably would at some point, I can check it out and my child can still have access to that content, correct?
As a parent, I'm not aware that the book exists though. And it's not.
That's it. Yes or no question.
All the statute says is the books will be
Okay, I got to live my childhood dream of being a JAG person. I've read a lot of
Correct.
laws
Correct.
this
Relocated,
last week, but it says
relocated to an
relocate.
area inaccessible to minors under the age of 18 is what the statute
So it
language.
doesn't say remove out of the collection or to ban it from the library, correct?
Correct. So when I refer to remove from the main collection, that's what I'm talking about. I should make
That
sure
wasn't
that's
clarified.
Clear.
So
I'm talking about
speech.
putting in a segregated space. I guess I tried to describe some of the interpretive difficulties that came up as soon as the staff started asking me, what does that actually require? Is it going to be under lock and key? If we've got minors working there,
That's too
how does
complicated.
that work for it to be behind the desk? What if it's a single room in the library? Those are the issues that Kelly.
Gas stations, cigarettes, that be here all the time.
John, let me just say, one of the things that